Welcome to Her Fantasy Football. You can hear us on Blog Talk Radio / Her Fantasy Football and on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe to us on herfantasyfootball.com so you can get our newsletter where we will give you our 4 ingredients for a fun, free FanDuel game Diced. And a friendly reminder, make sure to tune into our radio show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Network from 9 to 11 Eastern on Saturday night. Also, you can chat with us on Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook / Her Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Courtney Kirby.
And I'm Ashley Williams.
And I'm Brandon Marianne Lee.
And week 1 is in the books, people.
Crazy.
Man, there were some upsets. A lot of first rounders not doing much for us. A lot of second rounders not doing much either.
Mm-hmm.
Very depressing for a lot of people's teams. We're going to dive right into it and get into week 2. Put them in your lineups, take them out, maybe put them in your lineups. Just all depends. Thursday night game, the New York Jets 0-1 against the Buffalo Bills 0-1.
You know, they looked better than I thought they would look, the Jets, but they still are not looking like the Jets I need them to look like.
Unless you're Matt Forte.
That's for sure. I was to say, I'm starting off with Forte because he was one I was most nervous about because I had targeted him and I drafted him in a lot of leagues, and based on preseason, I was like, ooh, turn this around. And he did. And you know what? Offensive coordinator Chad Gainley said that he's our number 1 back. He's the clear number 1 back. There's no snap counts or third down situations not going to be part of. He is their guy. If you look at it, he was in for 54 of the 71 offensive snaps compared to Bilal Powell, who was only in on 17 plays. So there was that whole nervousness and confusion of, because Forte was not playing well, is Bilal Powell going to be the one that's going to be stepping up? Clearly that's not the case. Clearly this is their bell cow. They're sticking with Forte. There's no reason to worry. I still like Powell in certain situations, but again, Forte is the guy, so we can all take a deep breath on that. And he did pretty well. He was the 11th highest scoring running back last week.
Yes.
So,
New team, new offense, new dynamic. I think that's great.
Old guy's still kicking it, and I love it.
Take it.
Brandon Marshall, on the other hand, not kicking it. Not so much. I don't know if this
can't
hip
do the
is,
high kick.
Certainly not with that hip injury.
That's right.
That we were told is okay. He's practicing in full, but it's not looking like he's 100% to me. He only had 3 catches for 32 yards, despite being targeted 8 times. It's not like Marshall to have that kind of a completion percentage. It's just not. So I'm a little nervous about that. Decker was a little bit off. He only caught 2 of 7 for 37 yards. At least he got a touchdown. But the problem is these guys are still your starters. So I think you're still playing Decker. Marshall, I'm a little bit nervous about. You might want to look at a different option this week, only because I'm nervous about that hip. And Quincy Inua is a guy that we've talked about probably second week of preseason, I want to say. And he's Fitzy's butt. Fitzy really likes him. He had 7 catches. 7 for 54 yards and a touchdown. I think this is a really interesting sleeper.
Well, Fitzgerald's having a hard time throwing down the field, and he only averaged 3.6 yards per target. Anyway, so that was perfect for Fitzy. That's like gold. Yeah.
And he really likes him. So
yeah.
And especially with Brandon Marshall's hip being a little bit kind of he's an interesting play, especially in daily because he is dirt cheap. So, again, he's not going to be, like, lighting things up. But if you need somebody that's, good for 7 catches at a really cheap rate, and he wasn't a potential option. So.
All right, everybody raise their hand if they got burned by Buffalo Bills.
Oh, my gosh, Tyrod Taylor, I hate you so much.
Oh,
I don't really hate you, but, like, oh, my gosh. I said so many. Oh, no. What happened?
Sammy Watkins, why?
Sean McKay did okay.
Injury prone, but I thought he'd make it past week 1, and sure enough, he's listed as questionable again with his nagging foot injury from last year. It's not good.
They told us it was better. They told us.
I know. They're liars. They're darn right liars.
Because Sammy said he was never 100%.
Well, he says he's going to play. He says he's going to play week 2. And, but I don't know if he's going to be anything more than a decoy.
I think it's going to be a decoy. I think
it's upsetting. So, we knew going in, the history of injuries with this guy. And none of us wanted, to be told, I told you so in week 1. I drafted him still. the upside I felt was there. And now we're getting burned.
I think
like
if we look
if
we look historically like last year, Courtney, I think you're right because he still played in games.
Yes.
But he was the decoy. And I think that's what's going to happen again this week.
Yes. So, I mean, we can't even keep an eye on him because it's Thursday night game. So it's not even like we can see how he progresses throughout the week. I think you have to bench him whether he plays or not, you guys. So 6 targets, 4 receptions for 43 yards, 0 touchdowns last week. I just think that we're going to have to find a new option. Hopefully we'll give you some throughout this podcast. Charles Clay, he's also listed as questionable with a knee. He had a rest day on Monday, but was back to limited practice Tuesday and Wednesday. He only had 2 receptions for 40 yards, which 40 yards for 2 receptions I think is pretty good. But I think he's going to be used more this week with Sammy's injury. So he's only on in 20% of leagues. We have him ranked 20. So I think that he could have a bigger role this week. It's risky. It's very risky, but it could happen. LaShawn McCoy, the only player for Buffalo that was productive. Woo-hoo. Amazing. Thank goodness there was one. I mean, he wasn't amazing, but, it was enough. He rushed 16 times for 58 yards and a touchdown. He also caught all 4 targets, which is fabulous for PPR people, for 12 yards, which isn't great, but at least he caught all of his targets. I'm into that. The Jets gave up almost the exact same amount last week to the running backs. So you might see the exact kind of fantasy points as he had last week. So that just has to be good enough for you guys. And if it's not, put him in that flex. But you cannot bench McCoy. Just can't do it. Sleepers, guys. Robert Woods, he's the number 2 guy. So that's it. I mean, he's only owned in 2% of leagues. If you're in a deep league and you lost a few people this week because a lot of people went down, he might be the guy you want to pick up. Again, this is deep leagues, but the Jets did give up the 3rd most fantasy points last week. Granted, Woods is no green, but I mean, he's definitely a viable option in deep leagues. And Tyrod Taylor, man.
Broke some
hearts.
Have
him ranked 29th. I think Brandon's a little bit bitter, and I get it. I totally get it. What a jerk. And it's really upsetting. But I think you can play him in a 2-quarterback league, but you just can't start him this week, guys. 0 touchdowns. 0 interceptions, but 0 touchdowns.
It's her rankings. She can cry if she wants to. And if she wants to put Tyrod Taylor at 29th, that's where he belongs.
I'm okay with it.
He's going up against the Jets. It's Thursday night football. You can't wait. You don't know if Sammy Watkins is going to play. You don't know if he does play, if he's going to do anything. Charles Clay isn't 100%. I mean, what's the upside?
That's right.
He's not Case Keenum, but
who is?
2 steps up. 2 steps up. Oh, let's get into the San Francisco 49ers 1-0 at the Carolina Panthers 0-1. Poor Panthers. They had a good game. 49ers. You know what? I hate that everybody was dogging the 49ers and was just saying the Rams looked awful. Sure, the Rams looked awful, but give it to the 49ers for winning the first game out.
This
is a Chip Kelly hater. And I still say, give it to the 49ers. They didn't look bad.
They didn't look bad. The entire time I was watching the game going, do they actually look this – I was saying, do they actually look this decent? Or are the Rams this bad? Or is it a combo? Because I'm not hating the Niners at the moment.
Stop it. Well, we'll see.
I don't disagree. But you know what? I think Jeremy Curley is a little bit of magic that this team needed.
I agree.
They needed this veteran leadership. I mean, for him to come in so late in the week and to be the standout player of the game, in my opinion, some would say Carlos Hyde. And okay, all right. I mean, I'm gonna agree with you. Carlos Hyde is a must start. He rushed 23 times, which again is a very large workload for somebody that's coming off an injury season, concussion in camp, and preseason, excuse me. But he looked great. 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm into that. You got to start him again this week. Now, and according to points against, and we've only had 1 game that we're talking about here, but the Panthers give it the 4th most points to running backs with a CJ, that was against CJ Anderson. I think Carlos Hyde is a comparable enough running back that you could probably see some similar production numbers there. But Jeremy Curley, guys, I don't know about you, but I went out and I picked him up in some leagues.
I did too. You want to know why? He's in the slot. You know who was supposed to be in the slot? Bruce freaking Ellington.
We told you he was going to have a great season. And then, of course, Bruce is out for the season. So insert Jeremy Curley. And this is a fantastic matchup. This is a fantastic, situation for him. I'm excited. He had 7 receptions. He had the best on the team in terms of yardage for 61 yards. He looks great. And we've got some, subpar quarterbacks that always lean on the slot receiver. So this is the ideal situation for Jeremy Curley.
Blaine Babbert.
Blaine Babbert. NFL doing the job for you, Courtney.
Babbert.
Oh, man, that was so awesome. So awesome.
Well, you're not playing him per se, but you are going to play Jeremy Curley. I'm into that. The running back situation with Sean Jerron is also interesting. 7 carries, only 18 yards, but he had a touchdown. I don't love him because obviously Carlos Hyde is the guy, but if you're in a super deep league and you need to throw somebody in a crazy flex, I do think they're going to lean on him for some goal line carries. So I think that's okay. I'm not loving Torrey Smith, but I'm not entirely willing to 100% give up on him because, again, it's only been 1 game. But he only had 2 receptions for just 13 yards. Quentin Patton had at least 60 yards on 5 grabs. And we already said Jeremy Curley had 61 yards for 7 catches. Torrey Smith is just not getting targeted as much. And it's probably because he's the deep ball threat, and that's not really fitting into 49ers offense at the moment. So if it's me, I'm leaning Jeremy Curley, but I can understand if you don't want to completely give up on Torrey Smith. But if you have a different option, I would please look there this week. Most definitely until we see that get a little bit more fleshed out. Vance McDonald, I've talked about him a little bit, guys. He had 2 catches, but he had a touchdown last week. He's going to be someone I think they do look at in the red zone. He's a big body. No, he's not going to get a lot of yardage. No, he's not going to get a lot of catches. But he is somebody that could get touchdowns. So if you're in a little bit of a tricky situation with a tight end, or you want to stash somebody, or you need somebody in a daily situation, he's not a horrible option is all I'm saying with that. And then, as we said, you're not going to play Blaine Gabbert, although he didn't look that bad. 170 yards, he had a touchdown, 22 of 35. Not great numbers, but better than I expected. And he also ran for 43 yards. Pretty good for a quarterback. So
yeah.
I
cheered for 49ers in week 1. I can no longer cheer for them because of Chip Kelly, but it was very exciting in week 1. As for the Carolina Panthers, this is a much better matchup for the Panthers this week, obviously, seeing how they faced the Broncos last week. But they were still productive, and that made me happy. I was kind of worried about this offense, but especially Kelvin Benjamin, you guys. That was good. Huge. That was like the biggest surprise for me of the week. He caught half of his targets for 91 yards and a touchdown. Now, after hearing that the receivers were going to be sharing the targets, it was going to be like a receiving by committee. But it's obviously not the case. Benjamin had 12 targets, Funchess 4, Jin 1, and Corey Brown 2 targets. So I think that it's safe to say that Calvin Benjamin is the clear wide receiver 1. So cheers to that.
Which we thought he would be, but I think people were overestimating the share.
Well, people were so concerned about the injury, and sure, it's early. It is early, but I think that he did very well. I mean, he impressed me. I was worried about him. He impressed me. What, Brandon? And we can't hear you. Cam Newton, obviously, you're going to be starting him. He's cleared of all concussion tests, so he's fine. And let's see here. Greg Olsen, obviously, is a must-start. He was targeted 9 times. 3rd tight end in targets last week.
Yeah.
Just behind Jordan Reed. And guess who was number 1 last week? Jason Witten. Stop it.
I have him so many places.
Stop it. Oh,
I called the court.
I told you. Me and tight ends, you guys, we just like have a love relationship. I don't know what it is, but I've been saying Jason Witten's my sleeper all year, which I can't believe Jason Witten goes into the sleeper category anymore. And they target him like nobody's business. Anyways, we're talking about the Panthers, but we'll get to Cowboys later. Jonathan Stewart is listed questionable with an ankle. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but he should be good to go on Sunday. I think it's just more precautionary. And so I think he'll redeem himself this week. Graham Gano, man. As a Broncos fan, thank you for missing the kick. But he still managed to get 9 fantasy points against Denver. I'm not worried about him. Don't freak out. It's one kick. It was the end kick that got the score, winning game. But whatever. He's going to redeem himself. He'll be fine. Obviously, the Carolinas defense, we have him ranked number 1. And on the bench, although I think the other receivers are going to see more targets this week, I think this is going to be a lot of passing. I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. If I had to pick one over the others, I would pick Ginn, just because I think that Newton is going to have more time to throw the ball to him. He didn't have any time to throw the deep ball to Ted. So I think that would be my option of who I would play in that, deep league flex position. Dallas Cowboys 0-1 at Washington Redskins 0-1.
Yeah, so 25 targets between Cole Beasley and Jason Witten.
Insane.
What?
Insane.
That is so crazy. It was all the short stuff, but they're not going to be that conservative against the putrid Washington defense. I think that's kind, actually, after what I saw on Monday night. Des Bryant. I know.
I am still fuming. I literally had to check and be like, did he get hurt? Is he hurt?
I know. It was so bad. It was so bad. 1 catch off of 5 targets for 8 yards. Terrible. That's not going to happen again, though. I'll tell you. They're going to put him on the side of the sad Rashad Breeland and just try to pull off an Antonio Brown situation. Wow. Literally, all you're going to hear about is I could not get over the Monday Night Football game. And the other one, that wasn't a game. The scrimmage after it meant nothing to me. But the Washington-Pittsburgh game killed me. But yeah, so I think that they are going to – and listen, they didn't win. And obviously they put together a very conservative game plan for a rookie quarterback. That makes sense. They're going to have to pass the ball to Dez. There's just no getting around it. Ezekiel Elliott had kind of an up and down premiere, actually. He did score and he did get 20 attempts. But he only averaged 2.6 yards per carry. And he just wasn't very dynamic. It was just good.
I think it's because the play calling was off. I think it's because they were trying to do something for Dak that Dak doesn't need. Let the man play ball. He proved in preseason he can play ball. Let the man play ball. Although don't, because I love that Jason Witten's getting all the targets.
I'm actually not, but Cole Beasley getting 11 targets is absurd.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Makes no sense.
All you kept hearing is people saying that they're going to, have to simplify the play calling for Dak because in the preseason he didn't actually see full speed defenses and whatnot. And I'm like, come on now.
He didn't turn over the ball.
We don't need to dumb it down to this extent.
I agree. I think it's too conservative. They're not going to win that way. But still, Ezekiel Elliott is going to have to earn the title of the next Adrian Peterson, as far as I'm concerned. And we were considered crazy for having him a little bit lower in our rankings than everyone else who had him like number 1 or 2.
I probably would have had him lower. I always had him ranged probably between 5th and 7th position, which was low, like you're saying, compared to most people, Brandon. But I probably would have put him lower if I didn't feel like I'd get booted out of town.
Yeah. We literally had conversations about how we couldn't rank this guy lower because that's where we wanted him. But anyway, Jason Witten all season long. Get it together. 14 targets, just needs a score. We're good to go. Sleepers, Dak Prescott. Again, if they open up that playbook or let him actually call an audible, something, I think he's got the talent.
Yeah.
He didn't mess up. He went 24 for 47, 227 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions either. I think they're going to have to add more to the playbook. I like him. Cole Beasley, I guess you have to talk about a guy who gets 12 targets in the game prior. He caught 8 of them for 65 yards. It was very dink and dunk, but that's the usage they asked. I guess he's a sleeper. I don't know. But bench Terrence Williams. When he didn't get out of bounds, I died inside. So there you go.
Oh my gosh, the videos about it afterward have been glorious.
And you know what? That was just the tip of the iceberg with this guy. Don't play him. As far as Washington's concerned, in good news, I don't think Washington realized how bad they were on defense. You could actually see the fear seep into Kirk Cousins. He was like, oh no, we're in trouble. Because they came out there with a conservative offense. They thought they'd be able to hold Pittsburgh. I don't know what they were thinking. That's not going to happen. They are recalibrating everything. This offense is going to be pass, because they know that they're going to have to keep up with the opponents. That's the good news. Junk time. I want you to think about Blake Bortles circa 2015. That is what I believe Kirk Cousins will become. I know he didn't have a good game, but this is what I think you need to look at. He was 30 for 43 for 329 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It was not good. And some of his passes were short. It was very weird. Trust me. All they're doing all week is getting him on his passing game. That's all they're going to do. Why? Because Matt Jones only had 7 carries for 24 yards, and that is not going to cut it. And actually, it was Chris Thompson who got the touchdown. Now, I don't necessarily think that says a whole lot. He was on the field. They were in the hurry-up offense. It was junk time, whatever. And he only had 4 carries for 23 yards, caught both of his targets for 16 yards. I'm not excited about either of these guys, but because they don't have a run game, and that's why they're both on the bench, by the way, Matt Jones and Chris Thompson, I think you can start Deshaun Jackson over 100 yards, baby. Last week, he was lit. If he just got in the end zone, he was balling. He looks really good. Jordan Reed, 11 targets. Again, it got very weird at the end of the game. They stopped going to him. I don't know what was going on. Trust me, they're fixing all of this. As far as sleepers are concerned, Jamison Crowder and Pierre Garçon actually got quite a few targets. Crowder got 10 targets. Garçon was 6. Again, I think they're going to throw all year. They're not really people that I would start today, but they're people that I would fill in on bye weeks. So if you have a deep bench, I would pick them up if possible. Not necessarily Josh Doxson. He is, he only got in a couple snaps at the end. It wasn't really a big deal. He only played in 12 snaps. He's working himself in. It is what it is.
I played Pierre Garçon. And I liked it. I needed
full point PPR?
Half point PPR, but I got just what I needed out of him. Out of him. It is an 18-man league, and he's my flex, I believe, and I got just what I needed out of him.
Yeah, 18-man.
Very, very happy. So thank you, Pierre. Please continue. Okay? Just 9 points. That's all I want. I don't even want double digits, dude. Just keep it up. Cincinnati Bengals 1-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers 1-0. This is the game.
This is always a fun game.
This is always the game.
And everyone always shows up to play. And AJ Green looked great. Looked great.
We knew he won.
Second highest scoring wide receiver of the week. He caught 12 of his 13 catches for 180 yards and a touchdown. AJ Green is magic. I know. I felt really bad. I was like, man, Revis Island, that's like kind of like gone away. Like, what is
I don't think it's fully gone. I think,
it hasn't fully gone away.
AJ Green's really good.
AJ Green's really good. And Revis, they did say, did not come.
On Revis Island.
They say he didn't come as prepared as he should have to camp. He's not in the shape that he should be. I'm sure he's going to.
Little umbrella.
He's going to jump kick that in real quick after AJ Green week. But AJ Green is definitely a go again. The Steelers get the 15th most points to wide receivers, so we're not exactly looking at it to be a tough defensive situation for him. He should perform well. Jeremy Hill, he rushed for only 39 yards off 9 attempts, but he was able to get a touchdown, so he still was able to salvage you some points.
That's what he does.
But that's
he
Jeremy Hill. I was
into
to say,
the end zone.
This is Jeremy Hill. Jeremy Hill is so up and down. His yardage is never consistent. Unfortunately, Giovanni Bernard did not have a great game because usually when one is not doing well, the other does well. It's kind of a weird week, but this is good. Jeremy Hill.
Running defense is so good. I just want to pipe in because Jeremy Hill is my Pierre Garçon. Like, I just needed him to score that touchdown. Like, I literally was watching him. I was like, come on, baby, just fall in. I know this is what you do.
That's what you do. That's what you do. Whoop, whoop, stumble.
It's the opposite of Garçon with his catches. I just know that he just needed to fall in. Yeah. Just please.
Yeah.
And he did. I'm fine with it.
He's a clumsy man, and we like it.
Mm-hmm.
We like it. So you're going to play him again this week because you drafted him to be a starter. He got you enough points that you're not going to be freaking out. And you shouldn't be freaking out about anybody, I'd like to point out, in the first week.
This is the manic week. Mm-hmm. This is when
everybody's like,
settle down.
Slow your roll.
It's okay.
Slow your roll.
People keep asking me if they should be starting people over Des Bryant. And I'm like, you drafted him in the first round.
You have to play him. I mean, unless you got somebody that was insane, you have to play him. Now,
well, we got what draft? Should I trade AP from Melvin Gordon?
Oh yeah, we did get that.
Yes, you should do that.
Yeah, sure.
Do that for me, please, and then join one of my leagues so I can do that to you.
Well, as an AP owner, I feel his pain. I'm like 3.7 points. What?
Well, hey guys, we all get it. We all got burned this week by our pick 1 or pick 2.
Oh, I did drop Tyrod Taylor, but I got him in like the double digits. So
yeah, but
right. Bye.
Well, two guys that you probably didn't draft and no need to pick up or whatever it was. Tyler Boyd, he only had 2 catches for 24 yards. Not great. But LaFell, Courtney will had 4 catches for 91 yards. So it's looking like LaFell is the number 2 wide receiver at the moment. But this could switch next week. We don't know. We've only got 1 week to look at data at this point. So these are not guys that you're to start anyway. I just want to keep it in your mind, bring it to your attention that as the moment, LaFell is the front runner, but by no means should he be a guy in your lineup. Just keep an eye on him. Tyler Eifert ankle did not practice on Wednesday. It's not looking good for this week. And Dalton, he did pretty well too. 366 yards and a touchdown, 1 interception, but he was the 11th highest scoring quarterback. So for some of those Tyrod Taylor owners out there, there are cases where Dalton is out there in your league. Go grab him if you want to. Dalton is consistent. He's always a top 10, right around top 10 quarterback, and I think he's going to have another good week this week.
I started him in like 5 leagues.
You did good. You did good.
I know. I
That's
love
what you
him.
needed.
Red Rifle.
Right.
I'm all of a sudden really excited. I'm sorry, it's so late for me, so I'm really pumped right now, which means it's gonna get rough here in about 30 minutes. I'm like a kid.
Steelers.
Courtney knows kids get hyper before they get really tired.
Yes.
That's where I am.
Yes.
I just get really tired before I get tired. I usually fall asleep sitting, like Dad does.
Well, then let's move it along.
I didn't even realize it was my turn next. So this is my problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. Hey, guys. Start everybody. I'm kind of kidding, but Antonio Brown. There are no words other than twerk, baby.
Twerk.
So
When they
good.
called it dancing on the national broadcast, I almost died. I was like, really? That's what the kids are calling it these days, huh? Dancing.
Indeed.
I call that twerking. And it's good. Good job.
And it's
Antonio.
good twerking.
And but I do want to say all the talk about Antonio Brown justified, but D'Angelo Williams was incredible.
So
incredible.
Good. He looked good.
And I mean, I know Le'Veon Bell's come back. It's all gonna whatever. But what he is doing right now at his age is unbelievably amazing. I am blown away. He was able to set the pace for the game. He controlled the clock. 26 carries, 26 for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions for 28 yards. He got a day off of practice, by the way, today, so he's on the injury report. It's not a big deal. It's a veteran thing. It's also a, hey, thanks. You are contributing.
Yep.
That's wow.
Rest it up, buddy.
They called me the D'Angelo sniper because I got him late in all of my drafts. Didn't
Yes, you
ever
did.
draft Le'Veon Bell. And man, am I happy about it. I was down in 4 out of my 5 leagues going into that game. And I won all 5 of my leagues because of D'Angelo Williams.
I just kept saying, man, I'm so bummed he's not a starter. This guy is beyond starter
I know,
caliber
he's
right
not
now,
fair. He's
and
on
he's
this
behind
team.
Le'Veon Bell, and it's so sad that he's on this team where he's not going to get to play in the capacity that he could.
I mean, granted, this team is, obviously the plays are meant for them, but it is sad that he's going to be benched and not ever touch the ball again after week 3.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
we're telling you right now, that's what's happening.
Unless Le'Veon Bell gets hurt.
Realistic.
Unless Le'Veon Bell gets hurt, keep
Just
him.
like last year. Yeah,
Because,
keep him.
yeah.
Do not get rid of D'Angelo Williams. You shut your mouth.
You shut your mouth.
He's worth a stash.
All
You do
right.
not get rid of D'Angelo Williams. Holy moly. And also, don't give him to the guy who has Le'Veon Bell or girl who has Le'Veon Bell. That person does not deserve D'Angelo Williams
No.
at this
Right.
point.
Mm-mm.
You heard me. Ben Roethlisberger, he's startable because of Antonio Brown and D'Angelo Williams. You heard me. Cincinnati has a better defense, certainly, than Washington. Washington, again, tragic. That's not going to happen this week. Big Ben did put 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception versus Washington. It was just crazy. Sleepers, Eli Rogers. I got him a lot on waivers this week. The teams that I didn't already have him. He is the slot receiver. He had a touchdown off of a deflection, which ironically was off of Sammy Coates. Oh, Sammy Coates. Of course it did. But still, he caught 6 of his 7 targets for 59 yards and a touchdown. He had a drop and immediately blamed himself and ran up to Ben Roethlisberger. And Ben was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. So I think this guy's really mature. I think this is a legitimate role. I think this is what he is in the future. If you're in a dynasty league, I'm so glad if you have them. I'm sad if you don't. Jesse James. I know that the Bengals gave up 0 points to tight ends last week because they played the Jets, and the Jets don't have a tight end. They have Matt Forte. Literally. That's not a joke. But he did catch 5 of his 7 targets. It was only 31 yards, but he's 6'7". Put that guy in the end zone. Get him a touchdown. I picked him up a lot of places.
I picked him up too.
Tragic. Only 4 tight ends scored double-digit points in standard scoring leagues. Okay? Like,
really?
Yeah. And this guy has potential. He's getting a ton of targets. Bench Marcus Wheaton. He is practicing in full again. But until we know what his role is on the team, I don't think you can play him, but he can be on your bench. Sammy Coates, he has good plays. He has bad plays, but no.
New Orleans Saints 0-1 at the New York Giants 1-0.
Because the Raiders have huge circular things and went for 2 instead of 1. That was crazy.
Ovaries.
There are a lot of circle. I have big circle things up top, so I hear you. You can have a lot of circle things on your body, and it's fine. So everyone, I will say Drew Brees is a different quarterback on the road than he is at home by a lot. I looked up the splits. It's like he scores over 3 touchdowns per game at home and just over 1 on the road. That's a huge difference.
That is a difference.
Scoring. So I don't want to overdo this, but still, man, And the Giants also have improved on their defensive side of the ball. They spent a majority of their money and draft picks there, and it has shown. But still, I'm starting him. Drew Brees, top quarterback last week. You'll hear this over and over again this season, I'm sure. Brandon Cooks, top wide receiver, 143 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Oakland. I don't think he's going to score 2 touchdowns this week, but he's a legit wide receiver 1. Willie Snead. Willie Snead is real.
Yeah,
Before we keep saying this can't happen. It can't, and all preseasons we're like, gosh, he looks so good, so good. But, listen, he caught all 9 of his targets, all 9 for 172 yards and a touchdown. Now, he also fumbled, but luckily, rookie wide receiver Michael Thomas made a heads-up play and recovered, so it didn't end up going to the other team. But still, that guy is special. I don't think that's a fluke. Some people are saying it's a fluke. I think that's complete garbage.
No, it's not a fluke at all. I think it's the norm.
And he was just under 1,000 yards last year being the wide receiver, too. Why wouldn't he do it again?
Yeah. I don't think he's going to get as many yards, but is that, but
172 is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But I think he can totally be that guy every week.
Well, people had asked, who should you go grab if you had Keenan Allen? Willie Snead.
Well, yeah, but he's gone now today.
Well, maybe, depending on the size of the league. I mean, it's crazy. Some people just don't, like you said, they just don't believe it. They don't have faith.
I would trade for Willie Snead. That's how much I love him. And I don't like trades. I rarely trade, I'm going to be honest with you. Mark Ingram, it was a shootout, and Travis Cadet was actually the one who got the touchdown. But I think this is what's important here. First of all, Mark Ingram is the starter. He did average 6.2 yards per carry. He's fine. He's still talented. It's fine. Travis Cadet, though, is his handcuff, it looks like. I don't think it's Tim Hightower, and they cut CJ Spiller. So things are changing. Adjust your rosters appropriately. Sleepers are Michael Thomas. He's that rookie wide receiver we talked about. Heads up play, really good. Caught all 6 of his targets. When people catch all of their targets, you trust them more. This is good. The thing is, I think it's going to be up and down for him. I think he's the inconsistent player on this team. But if you're playing daily, he's a perfect boomer bust candidate for GPP. Perfect. Kobe Fleener. We told you. We told you.
Yeah.
So, listen, we were all excited. I shouldn't say we were all. The fantasy community, and myself included, were excited when Kobe Fleener signed to the New Orleans Saints because we were like, oh, yeah, great. I mean, Drew Brees loves his tight ends. Graham averaged 88.75 receptions, 1,099 yards, and 11.5 touchdowns per season with Jimmy Graham. And in 2015, Ben Watson attempted to replace Graham. He posted 74 catches for 825 yards and 6 touchdowns. Okay, great. Those are all good numbers. Kobe Fleener is coming. He put up good numbers in Indianapolis. This is great. Well, then all of a sudden the preseason started, and a couple weeks ago we started hearing he wasn't catching on, and it made us nervous. Now, we had him still ranked as one of the top 14, but we didn't have him ranked as a top 5 like most people. It was crazy. Yeah. It was like no one was listening to the news. I, in season long, am waiting for him to prove himself. So you decide what you need to do. In daily, though, maybe I would try it. So, yeah. And we already talked about Travis Cadet, and that's about it.
The Giants, Ashley.
I'm going to decide on the Giants. OBJ, very pedestrian game with only 73 yards off 4 catches out of 8 targets, no touchdown, which normally you wouldn't say that's a bad game with 73, but this is OBJ we're talking about here. And it seems like he's lost a little bit of those targets to Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz. So we were kind of confused in terms of who is actually going to get the wide receiver 2 numbers. And we have no real answers. We are still looking at pretty much a dead split. So Victor Cruz, I will say, though, played his first regular season game in 700 days against the Cowboys last week. He went 4 for 4 for only 34 yards, but he got a touchdown. So you have to see a little salsa dance.
He made it out alive and did it well. I mean, he looked
Did it well.
good.
He looked good. He didn't get injured.
I think they're going to give that home team that salsa this week, though. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
New Yorkers are waiting for the salsa.
Yeah, they love Cruz. So
they do love Cruz. And big props to the Giants for sticking with this guy, because he had, as we talked about, patellar injury, which is to some extent most people don't come back from. And so big thumbs up to them. But Sterling Shepard, he caught 3 of 4 catches for 43 yards, so slightly more yardage than Victor Cruz, but he got the touchdown. So I think, well, they both got a touchdown, but it's about an even split. So I think OBJ is fine. You're still playing him. You obviously drafted him first or second in your entire draft. You're not going to freak out and not play him this week. But it's a little bit of an interesting situation there. Manning looked okay. He was the 14th highest scoring quarterback. He only had 207 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. So that gets it done.
Okay.
That gets it done. I do think they're going to come and play in New York at home. No, they're not. They're home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're home.
I think Eli's a good play this week.
I think he's a decent play too. So, and Jennings isn't a bad play either. He had 75 yards off 18 attempts. So at least, there's not going to be any share situations here really at 18 attempts and 1 catch for 13 yards. He just finished outside the top 25, and a touchdown would have made that difference, which could happen this week. So he's an interesting play as well. Flex only, not as an RB2. Please do not do that to yourself. But a flex, he's an interesting play. Larry Donnell, tight end, snagged a touchdown, but he only caught 1 of 2 targets for 15 yards, which was that touchdown. So I don't love him. There's better tight end options out there. And then just as a heads up, because kickers matter, they dropped Randy Bullock. He was released because Josh Brown is back after his 1-game suspension. For anybody who did draft him, he is back. So
it's a good thing they dropped Randy Bullock, who doesn't beat his wife.
Right.
Really
nice.
good.
It's really nice. Miami Dolphins 0-1 at the New England Patriots 1-0. The
Shocking.
Dolphins never disappoint.
Nope.
Thank you.
By always
Thank you.
disappointing.
By always disappointing. You never disappoint.
Madness.
You
are
didn't get my 2
consistently
touchdowns.
bad. Ashley did not get her 2 touchdowns.
No.
Unfortunately,
But they
called
played
out on
the
Sirius XM on
Hot
our show.
take.
That
take.
Foster was going to get 2 touchdowns.
Did not happen.
Did
but
not happen.
They played the Seahawks better than I think most people thought they would.
That's because they broke Russell Wilson.
Yeah. It's a strategy.
It's a strategy. Strategy.
It's like
Pay the price later.
Yeah, I guess.
No, Christian Michael and Thomas Rawls were both just ho-hum. No,
Pedestrian. Correct.
Baldwin did well, but that was really, we'll get to the Seahawks later.
Baldwin
but
always does well.
I'm just going to say they did better than I thought they would. People thought it was going to be a blowout, and it was not a blowout.
Okay.
Okay.
I was watching a different game, and
It wasn't a blowout.
I think Kenny Stills dropping the open pass was like
beautiful.
the moment of the Miami Dolphins 2016.
Oh,
and I
sad.
love Kenny Stills, you guys. And I
do too.
still love Kenny Stills. Yes, he is a boom or bust player. So he busted. Maybe he's going to boom this week. You don't know. That's why you have Kenny Stills. You know, you hope for the best and you expect the worst. It's kind of how you have to feel about the Dolphins in general. All right. You know, you're not going to start Tannehill. You know, you're not going to start Jordan Cameron. He's not worth your time. Which Kenny Stills is owned in less leagues than Jordan Cameron. Mind blown. Okay. Listen, I know Jarvis Landry burned you guys. This is another prime example that, like, don't worry about it. It was Seattle. It was
Right.
It was
We
tough.
told you not to play him.
Yeah, you just need to back it up. If he gets in the end zone, we're all good. He has targeted 10 times. So that's positive, you guys. Against Seattle, that's good news. So just relax, all right? Arian Foster played all alone last week because Jai was a healthy scratch. He's rumored to be back this week, but no word on where he is in the depth chart. Do not play Jai. You can play Arian Foster. You drafted him because you're going to play him till he gets hurt. So there you go, guys. He's in your lineup. That's how the cookie crumbles. And listen, Arizona's defense was only able to get 6 fantasy points last week against the Pats. So I am not starting the Miami Dolphins defense, okay? So we're just going to stay away from that. It's bold. It's bold. I have him ranked 29th. The Patriots.
So basically, the Miami Dolphins are the Tyrod Taylor of the defenses.
I guess. Yes.
Think about that.
Better than expected.
Better than Case Keenum.
Maybe
better than Case Keenum. Yeah.
Maybe I was just really expecting nothing from them. Maybe I set the standard so low that I was like, hey, better
But
than
then you
Foster.
raised it.
I
with
thought
2
Foster looked good,
touchdowns.
and he did
Yeah.
receive some balls. I think he looked good. It's promising. Foster is promising.
I was
As
like,
long as he stays
Foster-
healthy,
yeah.
he's good to go.
Right. No one plays well at Seattle.
Yeah, and
I
Jarvis
thought
Landry's
Foster
gonna be
would
fine.
do well. I never said the Dolphins as a whole would do well. Never did that come out of my mouth.
No,
Well, the New England Patriots.
my
Everyone was wrong
youngest
with the
daughter
Patriots.
is a Dolphins fan, you guys, and
What?
I told her it's going to be a tough season for her
How is she a Dolphins fan?
because they're Dolphins.
She's like,
She's 4. She sees a Dolphin. She's like, all right, I'm into it. I mean, she's a Broncos and a Chiefs fan first, but she loves the Dolphins.
So should we get her a Kenny Stills jersey this year for
Oh my
Christmas?
gosh. Yes.
Yes.
So the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick is a warlock. Again, you guys, it's black magic. We've all accepted it. It's who they are. They just,
Mhm.
I don't know what the deal is. He sold his soul somewhere.
They're
Maybe
a
not to the
system.
devil,
It's a
but there's
system.
definitely someone who is on his side somewhere, because I'm telling you, it's amazing. What he does is amazing. So LeGarrette Blount, I still think he's a starter. 22 carries for 70 yards last week and a touchdown. I expect similar numbers against Miami. I think that they want to run the ball, and LeGarrette Blount's doing what they want him to do. Rob Gronkowski, bummer he did not play last week. Big time for fantasy owners, but I don't think I want to ease him into my lineup. If Rob Gronkowski is playing, you start him. Stop asking questions. If your question is, should I start Rob Gronkowski? I'm not even going to answer you. I'm going to tell you right now. Stop. And you know what? And even if he zeroes out, I'll feel fine about the decision. He's been out with a hamstring injury, but he is back now at practicing. Or he is practicing limited, but he is practicing with hamstring. Julian Edelman, always a PPR monster, caught all 7 of his targets last week for 66 yards. We want to score, but still, you can't bench that guy, especially in PPR
It
formats.
felt like it was more than 7, didn't it? At one point, it was like every single play for
Yeah.
a whole drive went to Edelman. And I'm like,
It
Edelman
felt
should
like
right
20.
now.
Yeah, I think some got called back. There was a lot going on. James White is a sleeper of mine. PPR only. He caught 5 of his 7 targets for 40 yards. He only had 1 carry for 4 yards. So it's really only PPR. Literally, if you are in standard, you cannot play James White. Chris Hogan, I'm warming up. Fine. I'll admit it. I'll say it. He got 3 of his 4 targets for 60 yards and a touchdown. If you watch the game, he made a lot of good plays, though. He was very involved. So he actually learned the playbook a lot quicker than people thought. He was able to really integrate himself into the Patriots way. I'm okay with it. Bench, I'm still not starting Jimmy G, even though, he beat the Cardinals. He only scored 14.06 fantasy points in standard scoring. Not exactly what we want from our quarterbacks. So let's be real here for a minute. And then Martellus Bennett is not Aaron Hernandez. By the way, that's a compliment in most of the world. So,
Yeah.
but listen, he's going to do his job. He's great. And I think Gronk's going to be back. It's fine.
There you go. Kansas City Chiefs 1-0. Houston Texans 1-0. Kansas City Chiefs, biggest comeback in Chiefs history.
They looked great that second half.
They looked great that second
They
half.
did look
First half,
man.
they looked terrible.
They looked good.
And
that
Courtney,
second half.
you got your Alex Smith running touchdown.
I knew that man was going to run in for
Yeah,
a
you
touchdown.
did.
I knew it. I knew it. And what did I do? I played him. I played Alex Smith.
I played him in a league too, actually. It's like those 2 quarterback leagues. Alex Smith is
Yep.
money
He's
in the
money,
bank.
you guys. He is so consistent. He should always be your quarterback too in 2 quarterback leagues. It shouldn't even be a question.
Well,
Because he is consistent.
well, based on last week, he should be a starter as he was the third highest scoring quarterback last week with 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he also had a rushing touchdown. He did great. Big props to him.
Where I was wrong was the running back situation. I was wrong there.
Yeah, but
Really wrong.
it's still tricky because I was struggling to even say on this one because Jamal Charles, he could sit again this week, right? He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but nothing is for sure that he's actually going to play. Now, Spencer Ware, he did not practice Wednesday with a toe. It's a sprained toe, but if he is, according to head coach Andy Reid, he is going to play. He'll be okay for the week 2 opener. But what's interesting is that Spencer Ware and Charkandrick West each played 34 out of the 71 snaps, which is interesting. Again, overtime victory. So while Spencer Ware did great this week, and I think he'll do good again this week, they were honest when they said they were going to be splitting time. They were both in the same amount of snaps. So it's not to say that Charkandrick West isn't going to be the top running back this week. I don't think that's going to happen, but I just want to put a little bit of a warning out here that Andy Reid didn't lie to us. It was a split snap count. Ware did well. Ware technically is right now the handcuff to Jamal Charles, but I don't know. I just don't know if I feel awesome about it this week.
Well, I said that last week, and I feel like I burned people. So,
well, Texans also got a good defense. They get the 6 boost points for running backs too, though.
I don't have a problem with any lead running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. My problem is going to be when Jamal Charles comes back. To me, I think Ware's a starter every time that Charles is not on the field. When Charles is on the field, I just think Charles gets his job back, but a lot of people don't think he will.
really?
Job back. Yeah, there's all this talk that Ware's the new back, and I'm like, no.
I'd be
No.
very surprised by that.
I mean, Ware looked good, but to me, it wasn't Jamal Charles good. And granted, everyone's going to say, you're thinking Jamal Charles of, like, 2013. Yeah, okay, maybe, but he still was good. He's still solid. I don't think Jamal Charles is going to lose his job by any means. Now, will they, as we've been saying all season, maybe use him a little bit less to keep him fresh? Yeah, I think so. I think they absolutely will. But I am a little bit nervous that there is still an even split count. I do think Spencer Ware is a guy, but I just wanted to have a little bit of a beware situation. Kelsey, he did good. He was 6 for 7 for 74 yards, 7th highest scoring tight end. He's going to do fine again this week. You got to play him. He's your top tight end. Macklin was 5 for 7 for 63 yards and a touchdown. Again, you drafted him as a starter. You have to play him as a starter. You're going to play him. And then really all it is Justin Houston. He restructured his deal, and he will not be back till November, which does make the Chiefs a very different defense. And if anyone else played the Chiefs like I did, it was not a pleasant score for you this week with the Chiefs defense by any means. So
No.
keep that in mind in terms of Chiefs defense because Houston is not playing.
And the Houston Texans, Ashley.
Texans, DeAndre Hopkins, he's good as always, 54 yards and a touchdown. I think he's going to do better even this week than he did last week. Will Fuller, I've been talking all season long about how excited I am about Will Fuller, and he did awesome. 5 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. This is like Brock's guy. He looks for Will Fuller. He looks for obviously DeAndre Hopkins as well, but they finally have another good option at wide receiver too here, and Fuller is the guy. We were kind of undecided between, is it going to be Braxton Miller, Rashard Matthews, Braxton Miller, but it's not. It's Will Fuller. He's fantastic. Brock Osweiler.
You're thinking Jalen Strong, right?
I'm thinking Jalen Strong. Yeah, I was like, that's not right.
That's fine.
Fuller's a guy. Now, Brock Osweiler, 22 of 35 pass attempts, 231 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to hate you if you decide to start playing him. Not now. but then if you start thinking for him in the next couple weeks here, he's good. They're just going to be better and better every single week. They're starting to really develop that chemistry, and I like them. I do want to make note that J.J. Watt was back, but Brian Cushing is now out. So again, this is they can't quite seem to be on the field at the same time, these guys, and I wish this was like all coming into play. But keep this in mind for the Texans defense. But overall, they've been kind of doing this like sachet anyway, so I think we're going to be fine with them as a defense.
All right, Baltimore Ravens 1-0. The Cleveland Browns 0-1. The Ravens start. We have the Baltimore Ravens as a must start this week for defenses against the Browns. So ranked number 5. No RG3.
Yeah, jerks.
Cheers. Justin Tucker, number 2. Cheers. It's never a good sign when you're starting off with the defense and the kicker as the starters. Because that's all we got, folks. That's it. We write it, and it's gone. Now we go into sleepers.
Flacco.
Stop it. We're going into the sleepers. Flacco is a sleeper. I will give Flacco a sleeper. We have him ranked number 15. That does not make him a starter, Brandon Marianne Lee. But yeah.
I got to bump him up.
They gave up 276 yards and 2 touchdowns last week to rookie Carson Wentz. So if the Browns can do that to Wentz, who had never played in an NFL game before, not alone was the starter during the preseason, then they can give it up to Flacco. So I like Flacco, and I may start him in certain leagues, especially in daily. But as number 15, you can't say he's a must start. Brashard Perryman is questionable. Shocker. He's injured again. Steve Smith was not very productive, but did see the most targets, which is very promising. They clearly want to get him the ball. Yep. But Mike Wallace was the most productive once again. And I'm okay with you starting either one of these guys in deep leagues. So
Wallace looked good.
Yeah, they're going to throw the ball. It's Cleveland. They're going to have a good time. So one of these guys is going to have a good time. I think Mike Wallace is a shoo-in, but because of Steve Smith's volume, I think it's okay. As for the running backs, you guys, Forsett and West were sharing touches very evenly, and that breaks my heart. Now, I think there are nothing more than a flex, either one of these guys this week going against the Browns, even though it's the Browns, and I do think they're going to run. But I just don't like that split between the two of them. It's not my thing. Forsett was more productive, just so you know, last week, and I do think he will be rewarded for that this week. But we have them ranked very close with each other and no more than a flex. I went over Flacco, and you're going to bench all the tight ends, you guys.
All right.
It's Pitta, and we Pitta a fool.
Yeah. Pitta is the lead tight end.
Yeah, that's
it. Guys. I cannot.
It's good.
That's life. Cleveland Browns, everything has changed. RG3 is on IR right now with a shoulder injury. It's his non-throwing arm that's not good. It is, however, good for Gary Barnidge because Josh McCown is back. So not to be insensitive to RG3, but let's put it this way. Gary Barnidge had 2 targets, and they were both drops last week. Bad game. But over 60% of his productivity has come under Josh McCown. He averaged 5.8 catches and 80 yards and 0.75 touchdowns per game with Josh McCown. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be exactly that, but I am saying this is a much better thing. They have a connection, and at least won't just be 2 drops. Only, again, 4 tight ends scored over 10 fantasy points. It's ugly out there. Isaiah Crowell. Man, I hope that you got our cheat sheet because so many people that followed us got Isaiah Crowell, and I was feeling guilty for a little bit. I had that moment where I was like, what if he sucks?
Did we lead these people the wrong way?
Right. Because other people were like, whatever. But no, Isaiah Crowell, tons of work. No, it's not tons of work, but still, he got 12 carries last week with 62 yards and a touchdown. They're obviously looking for him. They didn't do a lot of running because it was RG3. They were down. It was a weird game. But I think Isaiah Crowell's role is solidified. Sleepers are Corey Coleman. I'm interested in how he's going to jive with McCown. He was 2 of 5 for 69 yards yards last week. And Terrell Pryor, he led the team actually with 7 targets last week. He only caught 3, but they went for 68 yards. And again, it was RG3. So I don't know about his chemistry with McCown. He's questionable with his shoulder injury right now. But as you know, I'm a believer in Terrell Pryor. It looks like he's a starter at least until Josh Gordon gets back. And Duke Johnson, everyone's hoping that he gets a little more opportunity now that Josh McCown is going to be on the field. Rushed 3 times for 22 yards, 3 passes for 28 yards. That's just not going to cut it in standard or PPR. That's just not good enough. And a lot of people actually drafted him as their RB1 if they did kind of the 0 RB thing. So
Crazy.
yeah. And for the bench, I'd say everyone else, but there aren't many players left. So way to go, Browns.
Way to go, Browns.
That's right.
Well, Josh McCown.
We'll wait and see this week.
Yeah.
Tennessee Titans 0-1. The Detroit Lions 1-0.
So DeMarco Murray, he did pretty well. 9th highest scoring running back. We thought he was going to do well this season. Again, he came out and performed exactly how he needed to. 13 rushes for 42 yards and 5 out of 7 for 35 yards in the air with 2 touchdowns. I'll take it. That works for me. Now, Derrick Henry owners, though, are not as happy. He only rushed 5 times for a whopping 3 yards.
We told you not to do this.
But he went 2 for 2 for 41 yards. So he wasn't horrible if you went flex, and that's not true. 4 points is horrible. But there's hope for him. It just makes me a little bit nervous that was so kind of just ho-hum out of the gate. But it is what it is. Delaney Walker was only the 19th highest scoring tight end, 3 out of 5 for 42 yards. But Delaney Walker, he will do fine. He will bounce back. We did talk about this on our SiriusXM show that he may see a little bit less targets now because they actually have some receivers. I think we may be starting to see that, so keep your eyes open as to whether that actually is going to be the case all season long. But at this point in time, you drafted Delaney Walker as your starting tight end. You have to play him as your starting tight end. And technically with this matchup, they give the most points to tight ends. So it should be a good week for Delaney Walker. Mariota, he could have a big week this week. He finished as the 15th highest scoring quarterback last week, and the Lions gave up a ton of points last week. And Mariota did pretty well, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I'm not hating him this week. I'm not. At all. Tajay Sharp led the way with 7 out of 11 catches with 76 yards. Not as much as what I would have hoped for, but still not bad for week 1 of a rookie regular season. Calm down again, guys. It's just week 1. And then Kendall Wright was limited during practice on Wednesday, but again, you better be pretty desperate if you're looking at Kendall Wright to play.
Are you kidding me? It's awesome. Tajay Sharp got 11 targets as a rookie in his first game.
I know, but
You're welcome.
More. I wanted more than 76 yards. I'm being selfish, but I wanted more.
Yeah, but I
wanted
a PPR league, though, that's 14.6 points.
Well, he only caught 7 of the 11, but
that's what I'm saying.
It's 14.6 points, but still not bad. As I'm saying, for
Not
week
bad.
1, for a rookie, 76. I want a touchdown, Courtney. I want a touchdown.
You're greedy. You're greedy.
I didn't get a touchdown on Delaney Walker. I didn't get a touchdown on Tajay Sharp. Granted, it's because DeMarco Murray
Delaney, I
all the
can understand.
touchdowns.
Delaney, I'm
we
ticked.
drafted him. Okay.
Yeah. He was a steal. He took him at the end of the draft. Delaney, I had to
I agree. For where you got him. I'm just saying he was doing really well in preseason. There's a lot of high hopes. I was hoping for a touchdown. That's all I'm saying.
All right. You do
Detroit.
Detroit. Matthew Stafford. What a baller.
Baller.
Way to go. 31 of 39 for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. Because Indianapolis's defense is terrible.
Really
Wow.
bad.
They're really competing with Washington for being really bad. And San Diego. Oofed up. Tennessee didn't give up much points last week because they went up against a very conservative offense being led by Sean Hill. So I'm not looking into that. Last season, they gave up the 6th most points to quarterbacks. So I'm looking a little more to that. I know they had improvements, but I don't think it's that improved. Look for a regression towards the mean. So I think still Stafford will come out fine. Marvin Jones, until I know that Tate's fully healthy, I expect Jones to continue getting 10 targets per game, but he only caught 4 of them for 85 yards. Now that's a big, that's a lot of yards for 4 catches, but that's 6 balls he didn't catch. It is what it is. Theo Riddick, Tennessee is good against the run. They were good against the run last year as well, and they definitely shut down Adrian Peterson last week. But Riddick's all about the pass, 5 for 5 for 63 yards and a touchdown. Now, he also carried the ball 7 times for 45 yards and a touchdown. I wouldn't expect that again, but I still think, again, they signed Theo Riddick to a contract for a reason. Remember when that happened on this show? We were like, and congratulations, people who drafted Theo Riddick. I stand by that. I think his usage is pretty solid.
I do too.
Sleepers, I'm going to go with Golden Tate. Again, the problem is that he gets all of his usage yards after the catch, but he's been questionable with this ankle injury for weeks. Supposedly he's healthy now, but obviously the injury hindered the yards after the catch, so it wasn't as great as we'd like. He did catch all 7 of his targets, so much for he has the drops or whatever, but it was only for 41 yards. It is what it is. And again, Tennessee good at the run, so Amir Abdullah is still on that sleeper list. Eric Ebron, 5 for 5, 46 yards and a touchdown last week. Listen, tight ends are tough out there. I'm okay with you starting Eric Ebron, and I'm not really putting anyone on my bench.
Boom. Detroit. All right, guys, let's move on to the afternoon games. The Seattle Seahawks 1-0 at the Los Angeles Rams. So
Game of the week.
Game of the week.
This is it, right? This has to be it. A hurt Russell Wilson against the Los Angeles Rams.
This is fantasy gold.
Baby.
Let's go through this one fast.
So Doug Baldwin was great. He had 9 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted 11 times. So that's the good news. We don't have to be as nervous about the whole that they're only going to rush the ball. Clearly, Doug Baldwin is still going to be utilized, so full steam ahead on him. Russell Wilson is apparently going to be able to play week 2 against the Rams. According to Pete Carroll, he said, he had an ankle injury. He says that it isn't actually that bad. There was no structural damage in terms of what they looked in the x-rays. And he practiced in full on Wednesday. So how hurt is he? I don't know. He might be just fine, which might make this a pretty ugly game based on the fact that the Niners made the Rams look as they did. So, excuse me. So this could be really interesting. I'm really a little thrown off at what to do about these running backs because Thomas Rawls carried the ball 12 times for 32 yards, but he also had 3 catches for 26. Christian Michael, he was, I guess, slightly more productive with 15 carries for 66 yards. But Thomas Rawls, coach says he's ready to increase his workload. So, Christian Michael didn't actually come out and really impress and really, in my opinion, solidify that starting job. So
shocking.
When they say they're going to increase Rawls' workload,
he trolled us all preseason.
All preseason, we knew it.
Because that's what
he does.
And we finally,
Michaels does.
Yes, he does. And you know what? And we had to bite, because we already were so much lower than everyone else. We're like, okay, fine, Christian Michael, fine. We've been convinced. And you know what? We should have held to our guns, ladies. We should have held to our guns.
I will say I never fully bit, but I did say if you drafted him, you had to play him last week because that's the only week for sure he was going to play.
I agree.
Here we are already week 2, and Thomas Rawls apparently is going to get an increased workload. So I don't love this, and honestly, I was really kind of shocked at how bad the front 7 of the Rams looked last week.
Terrible.
For a team that literally is supposed to be considered the best front 7 in the league, they looked really bad, and I think that's going to be addressed this week. So I think the running situation could look maybe even worse than it did last week for Christian Michael and Thomas Rawls. So I don't really love either of them this week, even despite the Rams looking horrendous last week. I think that's going to be adjusted. I don't like the split carry. I don't like it at all. And CJ Prosise, he broke his hand, but he's practicing it full as well. So for me, really, Doug Baldwin and Russell Wilson are really your only must-starts on this team.
The Los Angeles Rams, the official worst team in the NFL now after losing to the San Francisco 49ers.
Not just losing. It wasn't just losing.
Yeah, right.
Let's be real.
They were 6 feet under. It was great.
It was
yeah. San Francisco had a good old time. Listen, Todd Gurley, we have him ranked number 10. You drafted him. You're playing him. I don't know what to say about this offense. Gurley was only able to rush for 47 yards and caught 1 pass for -5 yards. It's really scary when your number 1 pick overall only gets 4.2 fantasy points against the 49ers.
Still more than AP.
That's the reality of it, you guys.
It's true.
More than AP.
But I'm
Yep.
panicking as someone who has Todd Gurley in a couple leagues.
Oh, yeah,
No,
I would panic
I don't know how you
too.
watch that game and not panic.
Well, because you watched it last year and Todd Gurley was still able to be successful without a team around him. And now you're just like, whoa.
I think he'll be okay.
That defense will be improved. They will be improved. They have to get improved. So it has to happen, and it'll come around. It will. It might be a little bit of a slower process than we all want it to be, but it'll happen. And no one else on this team has had over 5 fantasy points, you guys, last week. So you can't start anybody, especially against Seattle. And that includes the kicker, guys. We have him ranked number 32. And it's not him.
Well, he doesn't have a chance to score.
Yeah. You can't get down the field. You can't kick a field goal. So
many punts,
the way
so
it
little
is.
time.
Case Keenum's also ranked 32. We could have ranked this whole damn team 32. But that would have been giving the wide receivers way too much credit. Way too much credit. So we had to adjust. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 1-0 at the Arizona Cardinals 0-1. I just want to say Arizona Cardinals much improved from this preseason, ladies. Like I told you. I mean, it wasn't fantastic.
It wasn't,
but it was
rainbows.
much improved.
I'm so concerned.
Much improved.
Yeah.
Carson's
You're so-
throwing arm is not the same.
Stop it.
Something's up there.
Something's
Not
wrong.
all rainbows. But Jameis Winston, on the other hand,
Yeah.
looked pretty good. Pretty good. Head coach Dirk Cooter said he will feel more comfortable with the deep passes for Jameis Winston this year. So that's the good news.
I'm sorry.
Dirk is going deep. Dirk is going deep, and you're gonna like it. And it
Is this a
Jameis
fantasy
Winston.
orgy?
Yeah. Wow.
Fantasy
I think
show.
Ashley just declared this was going to be the fantasy orgy of the week.
And I had a lot of Dirk
Hilarious.
in a matter of a minute there.
That was a good slip of the tongue.
Yep. Was it a slip? Was it? Anyway, Jameis Winston, with the
Just
deep
the
ball being an option now. He completed 23 of 33 pass attempts for 281 yards, 4 touchdowns. Yeah, he had an interception, but I don't care. He had 4 touchdowns. Who cares about that interception? He was the 4th highest scoring quarterback last week. So that is huge. Now, the Cardinals, for the most part, granted, it's been only 1 week. They're middle of the pack in terms of defending quarterbacks. So Jameis Winston should be able to have another good week. Mike Evans, he looked good. 99 yards of 9 receptions. He had a 45-yard touchdown. I was into that. He was targeted 7 times. Sorry. My goodness. I am sick if you can't tell right now. He was, not targets, but he was the 7th highest scoring wide receiver. So he was great. We all know I have a bit of an issue with Mike Evans sometimes because he gets a little bit dropsies, but he looks good. I'm really into him right now. Doug Martin ran 18 times for 62 yards. Not awful. He also had 5 receptions for 34, so when you add that together, you can't be too mad about that game. And my silent but relevant, Charles Sims. He only rushed 4 times for 9 yards, so that's little to be left desired. But he had caught all of his passes, which were 3 for 32 yards. And even with that, he had a touchdown. He was the 23rd highest scoring running back. So this is a kind of guy that you are able to slip into flex positions, especially if you're in a deep league. Charles Sims is still fantasy relevant. He will still get used. Now, the tight end situation is very dicey. Cameron Brate is technically the starting tight end. He was 3 for 4 for 30 yards, but Austin Seferian-Jenkins was only targeted once, but he caught that, and it was a 30-yard touchdown. So we're looking at who's the red zone target, who's actually going to get the yardage. The yardage isn't great at 30 yards anyway. So to me, I guess the upside would technically be with Austin Seferian-Jenkins, but, I don't know what to do. I just don't know. So it is what it is.
Agreed. Arizona Cardinals, you definitely want to start David Johnson because he is a true bell cow and is incredible. Stop it.
Yes.
Amazing. Larry Fitzgerald, it is scary when people say that they're about ready to retire, but he had just went out there and proved us all wrong. I was worried about Larry Fitzgerald at the early season. I absolutely was. I was completely wrong on this. Good. 8 of 10 for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's not going to get 2 touchdowns this game. I mean, I highly doubt it. So, but he's definitely the person that Carson Palmer leans on. Why? Because Carson Palmer's in my sleepers, because I saw some of those passes and they were fluttering. They were not as strong. I'm worried about him getting that ball down the field to John Brown. Michael Floyd, 3 of 7 for 31 yards, not looking super dynamic. John Brown, same thing. I'm worried, but you would like to hope that they can pass in the way that Matt Ryan could on them. But it took them into the second quarter. Tampa Bay's defense, I don't think is actually that bad. But anyway, Arizona defense, I'm also putting on the bench. I need to see more. Jameis Winston and company looked great last week, and I'm just not about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Jacksonville Jaguars 0-1. The San Diego Chargers 0-1. The Jags. Blake Bortles, guys, we have a number 7. His fantasy points do not reflect the game he had last week, you guys. I must say, he had 320 yards and almost 2 touchdowns. That would have been a fantastic game. So you just settled down. I think Bortles is a must start. That includes Allen Robinson. Same thing. If Allen hadn't missed the ball, that would have been a great touchdown. He would have been in double digits, and he would have been just fine. So he's targeted 15 times, you guys. That's top in the league for targets. So you have to start him. Allen Hurns remains a wide receiver 3 flex must start. I would say I would definitely start him as my flex guy. Yeah. So 4 to 5 targets for 75 yards 4 of 5 targets for 75 yards last week. And I think he'll even do better this week. Julius Thomas, you guys, he's going to make me a believer. Gosh darn it, he's going to make me a believer. He is listed as questionable with an ankle injury, but practiced in full on Wednesday. So they love him in the red zone, and therefore I love him on my roster. TJ Yeldon, he definitely does better in catching than rushing. He rushed 21 times last week for only 39 yards. Embarrassing. But he was able to find the end zone, and he had 4 receptions for 30 yards. So a much better percentage. If Avery remains out for week 2, which he might, he is a must start against the Chargers. He's only owned in 70% of leagues. That means in 30% of leagues, you were able to pick that guy up. Bench, you guys, Chris Ivory, he's still questionable after sitting out last week due to illness. That illness, in the hospital.
What does that even mean?
Great. What does that mean? He just got released out of the hospital on Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't like that.
So that's not good. He's still on your bench. Jags defense obviously is on your bench. Even without Keenan Allen, I'm not touching it this week. San Diego just knows how to score. And the Chargers, Ashley.
So really the only news here is obviously Keenan Allen. He is out for the season with a torn ACL. So what does this mean for the Chargers? Because there's a lot of implications with Keenan Allen going out. Much more than just whether you had him on your fantasy team or not. Because when Keenan Allen is in, they are a very different team. So who is going to be possibly getting the advantages here? So Dontrell Inman is now going to be a starting wide receiver along with Travis Benjamin. But to me, Danny Woodhead is going to be the biggest beneficiary of this particular injury. And Antonio Gates is also going to see probably an increased load as well. So Gates was only the 28th highest scoring tight end last week, only 3 for 4 for 20. But I told you he wasn't going to have a good week last week, and he did not. So that to me is not completely unexpected. In terms of this week, it's the 8th fewest points to tight end, so it's not going to be another rock-solid week, but I do think he's going to get more targets, so I think in turn he's going to get more yardage, and he's a little bit more of a safer play this week. Now, Danny Woodhead, 7th highest scoring running back last week. He had 16 attempts in terms of rushing for 89 yards, and he went 5 of 7 for 31 yards and a touchdown in the air. I think he's going to greatly increase in terms of being a pass-catching back out of the backfield with the Keenan Allen injury. So look for an increased role for Danny Woodhead. And Gordon, I'm not sure how this is going to play out for Gordon. He was the 12th highest scoring running back. He had 14 attempts for 57 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. I will say overall he looked good. But again, it's a different team without Keenan Allen. You're obviously going to have to play Gordon because you drafted him to be in a starting role. But don't be surprised if it takes a couple weeks for them to kind of get into a groove of this new offense.
There you go. Atlanta Falcons 0-1. The Oakland Raiders 1-0.
Well, let's start with the number one question of the week, right, which is Devonta Freeman. Now, he is splitting snaps with Tevin Coleman. That's correct. However, he did have more snaps. I did want to say, though, that this is not actually a Devonta Freeman issue as much as it is an offensive issue. Now, yes, Tevin Coleman did have 2 very good plays in the catching game. He did have 5 catches for 95 yards. He carried the ball 8 times for 22 yards. But let's look at what the overall thing that happened here. First of all, Devonta Freeman had 11 carries for 20 yards. He averaged 1.8 yards per carry. That sucks. But here's the other problem. He averaged 1.8 yards after contact. That's the same number. In other words, he got tackled immediately on every single run. Literally every single run. He could not have done anything else. So then you go, okay, well, what about the receiving game? Well, he caught all 4 of his targets for 20 yards. But here's the problem. His average depth per target, negative 1.3 yards. He averaged 6.3 yards after the catch, which means that he had to generate literally 100% and then some for every single catch that he made. Now, what happened? So what happened in this game? Tampa Bay decided that, oh yeah, we're playing against Kyle Shanahan. They have 1 wide receiver and 1 running back. We're just going to shut them down. So that's why they started rotating in Tevin Coleman, because frankly, they were keying in on Devonta Freeman. They were keying in on Julio Jones. Now in the second half, Julio Jones came alive. But are you kidding me? Remember the first half, everyone's swearing about Julio Jones on their phone because they were like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Well, it just so happened that they were able to get free because Mohamed Sanu started blowing up on the other side. And they hoped that Tevin Coleman would be able to blow it up so that Devonta Freeman could get in. It just didn't happen. Now, the other option is that Kyle Shanahan's a jerk, has hubris, and decides to go with Tevin Coleman anyway. Totally possible. But what I'm saying is I don't call anyone a boom, or I don't say it's a good call or a bad call in week 1 anyway. But certainly Devonta Freeman is at the lowest point for trade value right now. I say you stick with him and see what happens and hope that actually Atlanta's offense in general gets better. But this week I would start Matt Ryan, obviously Julio Jones, and Mohamed Sanu really made a case for himself. I'm very impressed with him. So, and I normally am not impressed with the wide receiver twos. So he caught 5 of his 8 targets for 80 yards. He did have 2 drops though. So it is what it is. Oakland Raiders, very impressed. Congratulations, Oakland Raiders. That New Orleans win was super. Michael Crabtree, baller. Amari Cooper, baller. Derek Carr, baller. You know who's not a baller? Clive Walford. And again, I mentioned this before. Lee Smith is listed as the starter on their depth chart. And I think that kind of, weighed itself out. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it's going to be all the time. I'm not saying to drop Walford. I'm saying that you need to either know that he's probably not going to get a whole lot of usage, or you wait to see him prove it and then you play him. But it is what it is.
Boom. Indianapolis Colts 0-1, the Denver Broncos 1-0.
The terrible news is the Indianapolis Colts are terrible on the defensive side of the ball to a point where it's just mind-blowing, really. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. It's just disaster. What does that mean? The offense is going to have to throw to keep up. And luckily, Andrew Luck looked the best I've seen him look since 2014. I didn't see him look that good all last year, literally all last year. Congratulations, Andrew Luck. You are back. I'm okay with T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief, and I think Philip Dorsett is actually going to become more of a good flex play because I think they're going to be that behind or trying to catch up all season long. Everyone's like, well, it was the game script. They were this. I think that game script is common for them now. Now, both of their tight ends went crazy. Jack Doyle, who you don't know, and why would you? And then Dwayne Allen. Now, Dwayne Allen had to leave the game, so that's why Jack Doyle started getting a lot of the work. But I think some of the scores are going to go to T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief at some point. I don't think you should buy in on Jack Doyle. I think Dwayne Allen is the man. Do watch his health. But, they're also going to need him to block. But, hey, they needed him to block, and he still was catching balls this week. So I'm fine with you starting him, again, because tight end is so dire. I'm still concerned about Frank Gore, though. You cannot get me to be okay with Frank Gore right now. I just think it's a really bad situation. To be fair, he carried the ball 14 times for 59 yards. 4 of his 5 targets he caught for 19 yards, but that's just not going to get it done week in and week out for a running back one.
No, it is not. All right, the Denver Broncos, CJ Anderson. Woo!
Looks
Clearly
good.
the man in Denver, especially after rookie running back Booker fumbled the ball last week. Classic. Classic.
Classic
I
rookie.
still love Devontae Booker, just so you guys know. I think that he is still a good handcuff, and he's just getting his little kinks out of him. He is, a roster spot on deep rosters. I mean, a bench spot on deep rosters, I should say, not a roster spot. But definitely not a starter at all. But C.J. Anderson rushed 20 times for 92 yards and a touchdown, caught 4 balls for 47 yards, and another touchdown against the Panthers, people.
Yep.
Yes.
Did not expect that.
He faces the Colts. The absolute gives up the most points to running backs. So this is classic. It's classic. Love it. Obviously, going to start the Denver Broncos, Brandon McManus. Listen, I'm putting them in the sleeper categories. But Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, it's not them. It's Simeon and maybe the offensive scheme. But Demaryius Thomas is questionable with a hip injury, and it doesn't look good for him to start, which does up Emmanuel Sanders' value. You know, Sanders does manage to get it done when he needs to get it done. So I'm okay with you starting him. I really am. He was targeted 8 times. He only caught 5 of them, 49 yards, but still, there's upside for him. Virgil Green, guys, every single time when they get within 10 yards, they throw the ball to Virgil Green left of the field goal. It's like every single time. Now, granted, he did not catch it. It was not a touchdown, but it's going to happen again. They did it all preseason. They did it all during practice when I went. They do it. So they like him in the red zone. You can play him. And the Colts gave up a touchdown last week to a tight end, so it's very possible that he's going to get 40 yards and a touchdown this week. And bench, you guys obviously do not start, but it's nice to know that Benny Fowler was cleared to start practicing again. That's good news because he does have a great connection with Simeon, who, yes, did manage to get the W last week, but only 9 fantasy points. So, oof. Bye.
And thanks to Graham.
And thanks to Graham. Sunday Night Football. Green Bay Packers 1-0 at the Minnesota Vikings 1-0. Green Bay Packers, obviously you're starting Aaron Rodgers. Eddie Lacy, he did not do much for you in fantasy. Add him to the list of people that disappointed. But he did look good. He looked a lot faster, and he's not sharing the ball with James Starks. Yeah. So we can be at ease with that. I still think he's a clear running back too, and you're good to go for that. Jordy Nelson, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 32 yards, and a touchdown. Sure, not double digits, but it was close enough. Minnesota's cornerback, Rhodes, could miss this game to a knee injury, so Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb could be just fine this week, you guys, and I consider them both must-starts. Do not get duped by Davante Adams. Do not do it. Let him prove it to you, because he does this to you guys. He does it. You pick him up, you drop somebody that actually is part of the scheme every week, and then he doesn't get a catch. So just know he might be there later on, but he's not there right now, so stop it. Packers defense is a start. Mason Crosby is a start. And benches Jared Cook. He was only targeted twice. While Rodgers saw 3 targets. Doesn't matter. Neither one of them are productive. We move on.
He and Christian Michael, preseason MVPs.
Yep. Ashley, the Vikings.
Well, this will be short. I hate you, AP. I hate you. 3.7 points. 3.7.
He didn't mean it, Ashley. He didn't mean it.
19 times he attempted for 31 yards. So that was rough. As we said, he was one of the biggest disappointments of the week because, again, this is someone that you drafted so incredibly high. But, it's right up there with Todd Gurley, so we can hate them both. But I don't hate him long term. I think AP will bounce back because, again, he is AP, and we do have a very volatile situation on our hands in terms of Minnesota. Stephon Diggs, though, he was the highlight. He looked good, 7 for 9. He went 103 yards. I'm feeling good about him, whether it's Bradford or whether it's Sean Hill. We told you to be a little bit cautious because we weren't sure what was going to play out there, but I think he looks solid enough that you don't need to be concerned. Kyle Rudolph was the 11th highest scoring tight end. He went 4 for 8 for 65 yards. I'm not as sold on him. I think there's other tight ends you could have out there, but depending on who plays, they may have to depend on him for some quick dumps because they have yet to determine who will be the starting quarterback this week between Sean Hill and Bradford. People are thinking it's going to be Bradford, but again, there hasn't been anything said officially as of yet. And then make sure you don't have Laquan Treadwell into your lineups either. He did not receive any offensive snaps, and Zimmer has made it clear that he is going to need to prove it and do a few things before he gets playing time. So, in his place, Cordella Patterson apparently has earned, his merit to be able to play. I don't like it. Don't put him in your lineup, but it is what it is. So you're staying away from basically everyone on this team other than AP and Stephon Diggs.
In all seriousness, you guys, Monday Night Football, to me, game of the week. Philadelphia Eagles 1-0. The Chicago Bears 0-1. This is going to be a shootout. Listen, the Eagles, man, congratulations. You guys don't suck.
That's right.
Woo!
We all underestimated you guys. We all did.
And you know what? I was high on Jordan Matthews. I said, man, this value is going to be crazy. You're going to be laughing at everybody else saying, I drafted him so low, and look at what he can do now. Booyah. He just shut down all the naysayers. I'm totally into it. He can't do well without Chip Kelly's offense. BS. Jordan Matthews, you're the stud. You're going to start him. 14 targets last week. Clearly Wentz's favorite target to go to. So no problem getting the ball to him. Ryan Matthews will be, Wentz's go-to guy. Because guess what, guys? Zach Ertz is out. Get him out of your lineup.
So sad.
It is sad. He'll be out for further notice with some rib injuries, you guys. And that puts Brent Selleck in that tight end position. And Brent Selleck is not a start.
No.
Don't do it. But yeah, so Ryan Matthews will be leaned on even that much more. So listen, he had no receptions, so he is not a PPR guy. So let's not fool each other. He's just not. 22 attempts, though, on the ground with a touchdown. Love it. Like the Eagles' defense, I think that that's going to be possible. They can make a couple big plays, run back a, punt return. Who knows? That's why the Eagles' defense is exciting. Sleepers, guys, Carson Wentz. I hate to say it, but he was a stud. Chicago is actually decent against the pass, so this isn't like my favorite week, but pick him up. He's only owned in 13% of Yahoo leagues, so go and get him, you guys. He's a perfect fill-in dude. Nelson Aguilar looked good in week 1. And in deep leagues, I'm okay with you starting him in a flex position. He's only owned in 11% of leagues. Guys, nobody thought of the Eagles, so they're available. They're out there. They can be your sleepers. There's nothing wrong with that. Sproles did not impress me last week, but I think he will be used again more this week with Ertz being sidelined. So he falls into that sleeper category just because I think the volume might be there for him in PPR leagues only. And the Chicago Bears, you guys. Alshon Jeffrey, as long as he stays healthy, he's in your lineup, period. Over 100 yards last week. All he needed was a touchdown, and he would have been getting kisses like a baby. As long as he's in the game, guys, you are starting. Jeremy Langford did just fine. 57 yards rushing, a touchdown, but only 6 yards on 4 targets. It's not awesome. But I like him again this week against the Eagles. We have him ranked number 2, so he fits right into that running back 2 position, guys. Kevin White, guys, I'm going to put him as a sleeper. Listen, if you watch the game, he looked awful. Man, that man must be very unintelligent. I probably sounded very unintelligent saying that. But darn, he cannot run routes to save his life. He cannot catch balls. But they're still using him. You guys, they are. He had the most targets. So, gosh. I mean, I'm guessing they're going to punish him a little bit this week, but who knows? He could have the most targets again this week, and therefore he's still a sleeper. But you know who you should really have is Eddie Royal. True and steady Eddie Royal. 4 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown. He's only owned in 3% of leagues. 3. So pick him up, stash him. Don't necessarily play him, but you can stash him. He's better than some of the guys you have on your bench. I use guys loosely. Zach Miller is number 15. He's not my favorite, but he's right there. And bench, you guys, Jay Cutler, the kicker. That's all she wrote. That's all she wrote. Well, guys, week 2. I can't believe it. First week is in the books.
That's right.
Woo. We got some injuries, guys. Get them out of your lineups. Make sure you pick it up. Listen to our podcast so you can get these guys that haven't been already taken off of waivers. As for us, we'll be on Sirius XM, Fantasy Sports Network, from 9 to 11 Eastern on Saturday night. Also, make sure to subscribe to us at herfantasyfootball.com so you can get our newsletter. Brandon, thank you so much for sending all of the injury reports and great waiver pickups. And, of course, our diced game. That's a free FanDuel game where we get you 4 ingredients to set your lineup. It's super fun. You can reach us at Twitter at HerFantasyFB and on Facebook /HerFantasyFootball. Until next time, guys, no more faking it.